Good evening and salutations, my Beyond the Gates fans. This episode, I don't know if I feel like I'm a little more hypercritical about this show, or is it just, I feel like sometimes when I'm talking about this show, I don't mean to be hypercritical, but I feel like as a fan of the show, I don't feel like I'm alone in some of the mixed feelings that I have about this show, because I feel like there's times, even in this episode specifically, where it gets me, but then it loses me at the same time, right? Doc coming in, talking to Nicole about how he has a problem. He has a gambling problem. It was a great scene. And he really kind of dives into a little bit into saying he had this problem since he was a teenager. What caused it, what triggers it. And, there's a point where Nicole's like, you're going to have to sit there and go to this place or do that or whatever. And Doc doesn't want anyone to know. He doesn't want anyone to know. He doesn't want his wife to know. But he understands that he's lost so much, including his wife, because of the choices that he made because of his addiction. But he still doesn't want that stuff to come out. He also talks about how he almost, unalived a person. Now, while she does sit there and say it's confidential or whatever, as far as like not having anyone else know, how far does that confidentiality go, right? Because like if somebody confessed to, let's say, unaliving someone, that doesn't fall under confidentiality. And the fact that he said that he almost did it because of his addiction and his lack of sleep and everything like that, I gotta wonder, is she still bound by that? Because if she's not, definitely telling the medical board is something that she should definitely be doing, like without question. But she does encourage him to sit there and tell Vanessa. Now, Vanessa has been calling Diego, texting Diego, finally meets up with Diego and is like, what the hell is going on? Diego's like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, he pretty much is like, oh, well, now you want me? And on some level, I'm kind of like, you've been sitting there pushing him away for a while. And I get it. That's your thing or whatever. But, as far as not commitments and stuff like that, but maybe he just doesn't feel like being used as your own personal sex toy today or whatever. So she's kind of annoyed by that. And, I'm still just blown by the fact that right after she just finished making love to this man, or whatever you want to call it, knocking boots, she calls a goddamn escort service. I think this chick also needs to be in therapy if we're going to be honest, but like, there's a point where Doug meets her. And this is where it starts to lose me a little bit, right? Because it's like he beats around the bush about his issues. He just talks about, well, we were talking in bed and, going through memory lane and talk about how we were these people and now we're not these people. And then, you know, da 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 da. And, I have a problem or whatever. It's like, why don't you just get to the point where you sit there and say you have a gambling problem? Why don't you just do that? Because he didn't even sit there and tell her any of it. He didn't tell her when Nicole was with this thing, you need to tell your wife, right? Now, I don't know if he doesn't sit there and say this because this will ruin Joey's plan and we can't have that going on. We got, he still got to launder his money or whatever. And maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's because of plot. Whatever it is, you told Nicole about the fact that Joey knows and he owes money to Joey and Randy knows, but you're not even gonna sit there and tell your wife. We're just gonna let this daffy ass plan of Joey just continues to go. What are we doing? Okay, so one of the scenes that I don't even really know how to feel. I don't want to sit there and say it's stupid, but it's a scene with Terrell and Jessica. See, that scene is fine. You know, they're talking and he's getting to know her, and you know, they're talking to them in their kid slang or whatever. It is what it is. But it's nice to sit there and see that he, at one point, is getting bullied, and now he's not there. You know, talking to somebody he likes and smiling and not always being angry and pissed or whatever, right? While they're talking and getting to know each other, Samantha sees it, right? And when he gets back to the house, Samantha pretty much just kind of teases him from jump. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I don't know what grade they are, right? But you can just tell she was being extra. You know what I'm saying? She was being really extra. At first, she was like, "Oh, well, I gotta sit there and help you step up your game since you and her gonna be going out." He's like, "Yo, listen, I've only saw her a couple of times. Yeah, but you know, I already see a thing for ya, and you know, you gotta sit there and match your energy with posts and stuff." I'm like, "What the are we doing at this point?" Like, this is the type of stuff where it not just takes me out, but again, I can't imagine older people sitting there looking at that and be like, "Oh, she's teaching him how to sit there and flirt with this girl by using." You know, Instagram and social media and stuff like that. I'm like, like, I don't think that this, for the most part, this really doesn't hit with older people. And the fact that they spend a certain amount of time on it, even when Martin comes in, and it just seems like it was just so extra. Now, Martin and Charles had a nice moment or whatever, but there's a point where Martin is at the gym and talking to Naomi. Bill shows up, and you know Martin's still upset about what he did to Danny. And part of me is starting to kind of look at that and be like, okay, I can understand the initial anger and everything like that, and I'm not just saying that everybody needs to change overnight. I'm like, bro, you acting like he cheated on you. Yeah, what he did was wrong. Right? We can all sit there and agree on that. But like, even at the police station, he was ready to throw hands at him, and he wasn't showing that much different energy before in this scene. Again, Bill's like, "Oh, well, you'll need me," and you know, Martin starts bragging about all these different connections and stuff like that. And of course, Bill alludes to something. Been alluding to shit for like what, a month and a half now, give or take. Are we actually going to get to this point? And I know people have sat there and said, "Well, it's going to get better during sweeps week." If we gotta wait to sweeps week for this or any other show to start really getting good, then you already lost. You already lost. Yes, listen, I can sit there and say I want them to bring it every day because I think that they should. Now, I also understand that that's a little unrealistic. But like, some stuff is going to have to start to be revealed because, like, what are we doing? Now, Naomi was sitting there asking about Bill's health and stuff, and he downplays it, of course, and, you know, talking about reaching out to Chelsea and stuff, and she's like, you can do that. Now, Naomi gets a call from Jacob. Jacob is sitting there dealing with somebody who is, he's, I was trying to be nice about it. She is just coming across as fucking nuts. Okay? That's the only way I can sit there and describe that. Right? But I get there's a certain level of mental health that she is going through, so I'm not going to be too much of a dick about it. My issue comes in when Jacob calls Naomi to sit there and help her. You know, clearly it was a miscommunication, misunderstanding, something about some property, and somebody didn't follow procedure or do something right, so she kind of got caught up in the system in a sense, right? And she's already homeless. So he pretty much is like, well, I need you to sit there and help her. She's going to really be doing some hard time, like 5 months. I was like, did you just put hard time and 5 months in the same sentence? Did you just do that? Now, this woman, I'm not even going to bother sitting and try to look up her name. But I wrote it down. I'm just not going to bother to try to look it up. This woman clearly does not want her help. Hell, she was mouthing off to another male officer. If she is ready to sit there and mouth off and nearly throw hands and act out of control, you want your wife to be sitting there dealing with her? Let me tell you something. She doesn't necessarily need a lawyer. She needs a mental health advocate. That's what she actually needs. So I sat there and I looked at that and I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Like seriously, what are we doing at this point? Now, the scene before Bill meets Thomas is that um, he's thinking about the times where he was helping Chelsea out, um, giving her advice. She was needing some help with quitting modeling and everything like that, and just kind of doing her own thing. It's like, you need to sit there and romance her. You need to do this because when I quit, I don't need her to hate me so much. But there's a point where you can tell that there was cracks because there's a point where Bill says Danny Dupree, not Danny Hamilton. And even she thought that was off. That was way before, all that went down. But there's a point where he's talking to Tomas and, he schools him a little bit on some stuff and then he wants to find out a progress report. And so Tomas gives Bill the progress report about the committee and what they're doing and the changes and things of that nature. And he's like, okay. And some stuff he's kind of like whatever. Other things he's not really feeling too much. But his hand is starting to shake. And after a while, Thomas is like, yo, you okay? He's like, yeah, my hand just fell asleep. You can tell that this is getting worse. You can tell that this is getting worse. But he says, don't say anything. And it's going to get so bad. Because even Naomi was like, you good. That I think that's what's going to help the rift between his girls and him. Is his health scare. Because, again, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know what I think maybe Naomi can kind of see it a little bit. Like, she's not fully ready to forgive him, but she's on that process. Chelsea, on the other hand, is a little bit more younger. She has extreme loyalty towards her mom and what he did with Basuda. But I think at some point, some of the family, you know, needs to kind of start to thaw out a little bit. Yeah, it was wrong, and he made her go through a lot of stuff. But he made her go through a lot of stuff. And hell, it's not like Danny's like, hey, listen, you can't be sitting there hanging out with Bill. You can't be talking to Bill. Hell, she's been encouraging her two daughters to be like, regardless of what's going on with me and him, you need to have a good relationship. So at some point, this is going to have to start to thaw out. And maybe this health scare is going to be the thing that's going to, make it work. Oh, almost forgot. Almost forgot about the other two. The other two, Ashley and Derek. Okay, I'm gonna try to be somewhat nice because clearly they either don't know what to do with them or is clearly using them for padding to pad out these episodes since they need to be an hour or 30 minutes or whatever. The big thing that Derek wants to sit there and adds is to move in with her, for them to move in together. There was one point where she's like, are you asking for marriage? And he's like, oh God, no. She's like, I'm sorry, what? But no, that's not what I meant. That's not how that's supposed to come out. And somehow she kind of just moved past that, and I'm like, but he asked you to move in, and I get moving in. It's it's a big deal in itself, right? Maybe she should also sit there and think about that whole marriage thing though too. But he brings it up. They talk about it for a little bit. Long story short, she says yes. At first, it seemed like he wasn't doing it for the right reasons. She's like, "Well, my lease is almost up," and I'm like, "Okay, well, you can find some place else to live, or you can sit there and just re-sign your lease." It should be more than just, "Oh, well, my lease is up, so I can shack up with you." Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just seems more cavalier as opposed to you want to move in with her. You want to sit there and take that next step with her. Long story short, again, she said yes, and that was pretty much about it. Um, sometimes with these two characters, unless you put Andre in the mix, and I'm gonna be honest, unless you put Andre in the mix, you're kind of just like, hmm, you two people are really boring. But people said the same thing about Micah and Willow in General Hospital. Then the whole Drew thing happened, and now they're not boring. Now people have a whole other toxic issue with them, but I again, I almost kind of forgot about them. It was like, oh yeah, that was a thing that happened. That's cool, right? I don't know. I feel like that's about it. Like I said, some of the stuff didn't work. Some of it did. Some of the moments where it's supposed to be good, they find a way to just f it up. The transition sometimes can definitely throw me off a little bit. There's times where it's like, and of course, there's no cliffhangers. Like, there's times in a commercial break where it just seems like they want to do a bit more than just leave that on a cliffhanger. Because even with commercial breaks, it's like something happens, they'll talk, and then it'll be ready for a commercial break. And it's usually supposed to sit there and leave you like, okay, well, let me go and sit there and get some drink and come back. But sometimes it seems like they just have a conversation and then it just ends, and you're just like, was there like more to that scene that they didn't get to do, or they had to cut it out, or it was just too long, or they didn't know how to edit it right. Like at first, I was not there trying to think about what Wink said, and then as I'm watching it, I'm like, this is odd. And it's so, I don't know why it took me so long because I watched all five soap operas, and this is the only one I'm just like, and although it's a small thing, there's also no cliffhanger. Like nothing. Anyway, that's pretty much all I got. The rest also didn't talk about in the live stream, but you kind of get the gist of the episode. If I missed anything, write in the comment section below. Uh, yeah, we got a lot to talk about with Beyond the Gates as well, so we'll talk about that tonight too. All right, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. For any new people that is watching this channel.